This is episode number 66, the seventh and last installment of the Year in Review recording. In total, 7.5 hours of inspiring conversations with speakers from the business communities of the hosts. What was hot in 2021 and what are the expectations for 2022 were the two core topics that the hosts and the speakers were tackling. In this episode, we were talking with Martin Popilka, CEO of P1 Fuels and Sani.ai, and Denis Roio. We were talking about Formula One fuels, hand sanitation, open source, and technology. I hope you enjoy this final episode of the Year in Review recording as much as I did, and you stay tuned for the other episodes that are coming in this year. Have a great 2022. Enjoy the show. We are coming to our next speaker. It's Matthias, over to you. It's Martin Popilka.
Yes, very happy to have Martin Popilka in the show tonight. I'm not sure if he already joined us here if you can promote him that he's Martin, very good. So I introduced and invited Martin to this show because I think he has an interesting story also to tell, and especially I know him since a year, and I was actually very interested in what he his story is super interesting because he's on the one hand CEO of a company that produces synthetic biofuels, so he has a background in a very interesting field, and also he has an interesting story to tell in regards to a story for COVID. So what brought them to a pivot and a new venture that he wants to present. So hello and welcome, Martin, and I'll let you do it.
Hi, Matthias. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you guys for having me here. So our company manufactures synthetic racing fuels that are completely fossil-free. And as the name suggests, the fuels are intended for world racing championships. And during the COVID pandemic, obviously, majority of the mass events were canceled or postponed. So we were facing quite a difficult time where basically all our revenues disappeared from one day to another. And one day I basically went to buy some hand sanitizer in a local store in Berlin where our company is based, and I couldn't buy any, which was quite shocking, quite interesting. But basically, because we use second generation bioethanol as a feedstock for the production of our synthetic fuels, I decided to pivot one of our production lines for racing fuel to manufacturing hand sanitizer. And that's how we embarked on the journey to start Sani. And basically, it's been a quite a fun year, to say the least, with all the COVID disruptions in the supply chain and basically everywhere you look. But the initial idea of manufacturing hand sanitizer brought us to the new project, which we call Sani. And we basically identified that the whole hand sanitization space is broken. So when companies wanted to purchase hand sanitizer for their employees, they either struggled to buy it, or they had dispensers that were continuously empty, or basically the employees weren't using it as they should, which obviously is quite painful for employers during a global pandemic, where employee health is one of the fundamental aspects that the companies are trying to tackle and navigate this quite complex space. So we decided to build our own smart dispenser, our own sanitizer, our own cartridge, and embarked on building a hardware company. I guess it looked much easier, in the beginning in the beginning of the plan. And I guess everyone says that hardware is hard, which inherently it is, and we learned the hard way. But it was quite more challenging during this time when none of the components are basically available, and you build your dispenser with some electronics that you cannot buy later, and you redesign it, and then you cannot buy the new ones again, and then you build the case, and some parts are missing. So it was a very challenging year, but fun nonetheless.
Martin, can you give a bit of details about the product, because I guess the listeners don't know exactly about what's the innovative part of it. So is it a standard sanitizer, or what kind of extra features does it have?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, we're not building specifically a hardware dispenser. We're building a hand sanitization as a service subscription for companies, where basically companies sign up, subscribe, and pay per employee, and we take care of the entire hand sanitization topic for those companies. That means we deliver the dispensers, which are connected to the internet and to our cloud infrastructure, where we monitor the usage of the sanitizer based on individual buildings, floors, or on employee level. And these dispensers basically automatically reorder cartridges as they need them, which means the innovative thing here is twofold. One, unlike standard sanitizer dispensers as you find everywhere nowadays, they don't run out of sanitizer. So we know when the sanitizer is running low, and we dispatch the cartridge in time to make sure that they're always online and always ready to serve their users. And second of all, we collect a lot of data about the sanitization trends of the companies, which is very important to actually know if the employees within the workforce are sanitizing the way they are. And on top of these two features, we basically built a gamification layer where we promote healthy hand hygiene within the company. So we target the individual employees who are perhaps not sanitizing, as they should, and we try to motivate them so they do a better job. One more interesting thing about the product is that you might have noticed some of the news about Amazon during this year, where employees in the warehouses don't have time to wash their hands or to use the toilets and so on. So we built in a feature within our dispensers that allows employees to refill bottles. So bottles, like personalized smart bottles that they can keep on their person and have access to sanitizer wherever they are, whether in a warehouse or commuting to work. And yeah.
So can you explain a little bit how that quantification creates like new opportunities? I understood that there's a lot of data collected. Has there been any concerns also from people that this data might be used in a complex way, or like used differently than intended? Experienced some resistance in this regard?
Yeah. Well, of course. So as I mentioned, we're based in Germany, and Germans in particular are very keen on data security and privacy. So we spent considerable amounts of resources in developing the product in a way that this data cannot be misused. And obviously, employees have the option of not participating. They don't have to share their name. And there are various features built into the product to maintain a very high level of privacy.
Thanks. Very interesting. So, in a way, I wanted to also understand, how can one envision how this looks? It's like a large device, or is it rather small, or like how does it work? Can you briefly walk us through the device?
Yeah, sure. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people think it's a water fountain. So, as you see in the office, it's a very large product, actually. And it's large because, it refills bottles. And in order to refill these small bottles for the employees to use, the machine has to have a fairly large cartridge. So it's a fairly large dispenser. It looks great. It's white. It's shiny. And the most important thing is it's functional. And I can't stress this enough. Like I travel quite a lot, and I was flying over to San Francisco a couple of days ago, and on my journey from Berlin to San Francisco, I encountered, I would say, 50 hand sanitizer dispensers. And out of those 50, maybe 10% of them actually work. And that's the thing. I think, we're building a product that actually works. So when you place it somewhere in a high foot traffic area, it will dispense sanitizer when it should, and it won't be broken or empty.
Do you already have clients where you're testing this?
Yeah, we do. We were very lucky to onboard some very, very, I would say, prestigious clients. So we are working with one very large digital bank based in Berlin that has been very fundamental to our product development. So they've been testing our prototype unit from the very beginning with their employees in the Berlin office. So apart from that, we also work with the FIA, which is the International Federation of Automobile Sport, where we, for example, yesterday were providing sanitizer for the Formula One prize-giving ceremony in Paris. Also, our sanitizers and our dispensers are used at multiple World Racing Championships, where there's a lot of foot traffic, whether those are race drivers, mechanics, or visitors, and a few other quite interesting companies that have embarked on the journey to properly sanitize and keep their employees and partners safe.
Very interesting. So what's actually on the plan for you for the next year with this project? Where do you want to see the project, or what's the next thing in your timeline?
Well, the next thing in our timeline is really to scale the company. So I think we've quite we've validated the product market fit fairly quickly. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's something that everyone needs and everyone uses. So we're currently planning a fundraising round early next year, which would be geared at really growing our sales, marketing, and tech teams.
I'm curious with one question. Sorry to interrupt, Matthias. Martin, I just checked your LinkedIn profile to get some information. And do I interpret it right? You are running 3 companies at the same time?
Well, running is a bit of an overstatement, but yeah, I do try to do so. So Sani was part of P1 up until this point. We've just formally started the spin-off process to facilitate a seed fundraising round. And in the initial company in Zero Labs that I co-founded, my very good friend years ago, I'm now stepping down actually from an active role into advisory board member role.
How, just out of curiosity, how does it work? I mean, being on the board of 3 companies, it must be pretty intense, isn't it?
It is, but I think it's one of those things that keeps you switched on. And I must honestly say that I have really benefited from these different industries in many ways. Especially, for example, for the Sani project, a lot of the learnings that we've learned at Zero Labs with our AI platform, we've implemented very early on into the Sani product, whether those are various predictions and data hygiene and whatever. So I think, in a way, it's kind of contextual switching is quite beneficial. But yeah, it is tiring at times, but it's definitely manageable.
What are your plans for 2022 with your companies?
Well, we have a lot of plans, but considering what the world has gone through in the past 2 years, and literally everything we have planned this year has been replanned multiple times. Whether it was in the racing fuel company where we replanned the entire calendar, I don't know, maybe 10 times. These races keep on moving from country to country, from month to month. On the Sani project, we redesigned the whole electronics of the dispenser maybe 5 times. So I don't really dare to commit to a plan for next year, because if you look at what's going on now in New York and the spike in COVID cases globally with this new variant, I think we need to remain agile and ready to change and to pivot as need to be. So I would not really, apart from the fundamental belief of being able to react quickly, I wouldn't dare to comment on any specific plan at this point.
Can you a little bit explain us also about the P1 fuels? Because I guess you were just explaining it briefly, but the listeners might not know so much about it, because I was also excited what you guys are doing there. Can you a bit explain how that came into being and contextualize it a little?
Sure. So with P1, we are a company that is promoting the use of fully fossil-free and internal combustion engines. So the whole world is on a race to decarbonize mobility, and there's a lot of talk about electrification, but not much talk about the fact that electric vehicles produce emissions as well, right? So the CO2 doesn't come out of the tailpipe of the car, but it comes out of the power plant. And if you look at the European Union's average percentage of renewable electricity, you will see it's very low, and especially even some countries. You recharge a Tesla from a fossil fuel power grid, you're not really decarbonizing anything, right? You're just moving the source of emissions from one point to another. So the whole idea behind P1 is let's really decarbonize the cars that are on the roads today. And there's about 1.5 billion passenger cars with internal combustion engines that will not disappear in the next 20 years. If you look at the average age of vehicle fleets around the world, it's very safe to assume that they will be here long after all of these predictions by when we should electrify. It's just not going to happen. So what we do is we make fuels that we're currently using stress testing in global championships. So we work very closely with the FIA. I'm proud to say that we supply the first time in the history of automobile sport, we supply a FIA World Championship, the FIA World Rally Championship to be more specific, with a completely fossil-free fuel. That means that this internal combustion engine is running a fuel that has not extracted any, does not have any oil in it or any carbon that's been extracted from the ground, which I think is the way that we have to look to, and not overly focus on only electrification, because the future mobility mix will be a combination of various propulsion technologies. It won't just be battery-powered vehicles. So that's what we're doing at P1.
I'm just wondering, do you also have then retail customers, or it's for motorsport only? Because I was wondering, I'm not a driver myself. I don't even have the driver's license, but I'm wondering, because I'm not sure how that would work. So are you supplying also gas stations as well?
Good question. Well, so first of all, to manufacture this fuel, it's rather expensive at this point of time, and it's also due to the political climate that we live in, right, where electrification is promoted. So on one side, you get a tax subsidy if you buy an electric vehicle, which is recharged from a fossil power plant, by the way, as I already said. And on the other side of fossil-free fuel is burdened by excise tax in Europe. So the playing field is not level. It's not technology agnostic, which is very unfortunate, because I believe policies should be made in a way that enable all technologies to thrive, and then the markets should select one that works. So that being said, the cost of this fuel and inherently the price is rather high in comparison to your standard fossil fuel that you can buy at a fuel station. So we currently really work with mainly automotive OEMs, their R&D engineering teams, large championships where automotive OEMs compete, whether that is Toyota, Hyundai, or Ford, that actually believe in the technology and need to test it. And since these products are drop-in, so they can be run in any internal combustion engine with any hardware modifications. The plan is to really get these fuels into your car after you get a driver's license, if you get a driver's license, and if you buy an internal combustion engine, that is.
Very nice. But that means it's a plan, or it's already possible today, for example?
It's possible. Technically, it's possible. Well, we need to pull the right levers and enable economies of scale to decrease the cost. But in theory, if we pull all the right levers and if we really get the support from the politicians and from the car manufacturers, we will achieve a price that is very reasonable. And a few weeks ago, the president of Toyota, which is the largest car manufacturer in the world, actually, Mr. Toyota, actually had a press conference in Japan, stating that the future really will require us to develop alternatives to electrification, especially for countries like Japan that have a very complex energy grid and are basically an island. So we will. The time will come, and it's, I think, going to be sooner than all of us anticipate.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I guess this is very interesting to understand also that the scope in this regard from creating the sanitizer is to the fact, as far as I understand, because it's also in the same way somehow like fuel. So does the sanitizer also smell like fuel, or how can we think of that?
Thankfully not, Matthias. Thankfully not. So, and then you're referring to normal fuel. You should actually experience how a racing fuel smells. It really, it smells way worse. I mean, for some people, I kind of enjoy the smell. But with the sanitizer, we try to, as I said, we're gamifying the experience. We want these employees to sanitize more because they want to, and because they want to remain healthy and keep their colleagues at work healthy. So we've actually gone through a process of developing various scents for the sanitizer, and had various groups of consumers test scents. We had a unit based in a co-working space in Berlin, where we switched the scents week to week to see which ones are the most liked ones. So I believe that our sanitizer smells pretty good. And it's also one of these things that really, enables these people to use it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, I think sanitizing is definitely something that's important also in the future. How do you see the development of the habit of sanitizing in the coming years? I mean, now with the pandemic, there is a lot of media coverage, and people are picking up and do this. But I always wonder if this is a lasting effect. I mean, it's positive to wash the hands and sanitize the hands, but I fear once the media coverage is going down, people will forget about it. How do you see it, Martin?
Well, do you think that the remote work hype will also disappear? I mean, do you think that the investments into digitalization of the supply chain to prevent supply chain disruptions will disappear? I don't think so. I think, the pandemic has shed light on many industries, whatever they are, and uncovered, things that we might have known before but not paid attention to. And I really believe that this increased sanitization trend is here to stay, and it will become a daily part of our lives. We see even throughout the pandemic, with the dispensers we're operating in these various customer sites, we see the usage going up and up. And I don't think it's necessarily tied to the COVID number cases. I think it's more tied to the understanding of these individuals that, it's part of our lives now. If we want to prevent everything from, a basic common cold outbreak in the workforce up to the next pandemic, sanitization is here to prevent that from happening and help us to remain healthy.
Thanks for this wrap up, Martin. This is really interesting. I think this is definitely a project also to look out for. Can you again tell us details about the race, and or is this still confidential?
It's not confidential. So Sani was incubated at P1. We've formally started the spin-off process, which is more or less concluded, and we're raising a seed round for the newly established company. So yeah, if anyone's interested who's listening, feel free to contact me. I'll send you our deck.
Nice, Martin. Thank you very much for joining here. I'm very excited about this project. So wishing you all the best, and I hope that the year will turn out to be fruitful for you, the next one.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Thank you for having me again, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas, bye. Thank you.
Ciao, bye-bye.
Yes, I guess we have one more speaker, Christian, but I guess like we have to also cover for a bit of time because I'm not sure it's already late and not sure if the waiting room, the digital waiting room is filled at the moment.
We had an amazing day, I think. It's 7 hours recording now. How is it going for you, Astrid and Matthias?
Yes, it's great. It's a bit of a marathon. It's an end of the year marathon rather than actually an event. It doesn't even count as event anymore. It's like so long, but it's super exciting. I had my ups and downs also in like a focus during the whole time until now. It shows though also how eventful the year was because I guess in all this time of crisis and COVID situations, the interesting part is also to realize what has happened in the past. So my complete perception of time has changed in this constant crisis, and then a time when you can move around a lot. We have heard this also from another participant that of course this limits in traveling is also very, very challenging. Of course it is. So I guess also from a, not only psychological perspective, but from various aspects, this changes also your way of interacting with the people around you. We heard also from Martin that this even just recently that this affects also, like, of course, the workspace situation, how people work together, how offices exist, how this kind of new work gets into being. So I guess like there's a lot of changes that will also stay after the pandemic. And also I'm feeling like we are writing this topic again. So it feels like even I got like some flashbacks into the past events of the year, like 1 year ago, and we're already experiencing the beginning of something, and then it was like, okay, there's an end in sight, and now we see that the whole COVID pandemic is longer than we expected it to be. So at the same time, I think some things are really there to stay, as we just discussed. Changes in digitization, they wouldn't so easily go back. I guess like also looking at the positive sides of the development, lot more telecommunications are used, and a lot of more opportunities are there also for people to learn about new things, to discuss technology more broader. At the same time, we also have been talking a lot about risks and about anxieties that the whole year has brought, such as all the different aspects in security, raising malware issues, and so on. So I guess looking at the topics, let's again check what kind of topics we've touched already, and maybe just interrupt me after if you have some other insight.
No, I thought it was very interesting. The whole day now it's 7 hours of recording to really see how on the one hand we had sort of like, you can say, two blocks, like life sciences and crypto, but there were a lot of topics that actually ran through different sectors, and I'm sure that if we had other sectors online as well, that we would have seen how all the the pandemic, the digitalization, and all these kinds of themes and topics actually come through for all these verticals. So it's been really an interesting day so far, and think we still have sort of just scratched the surface on many things around 2021, because we didn't even sort of touch any kind of political events or anything. So it was really, really interesting. And but I'm looking forward to another great year coming around the corner now, and see what we'll get from it. Yeah.
Me too. Astrid, what was the most memorable part of today's recording for you?
I said there were so many, but I think what was also a burning theme around it was again sort of the educational elements that we have around. That we really need to think about how we educate people more on health literacy, financial literacy, mental health. How can we improve that entrepreneurship? Giving also young people, or not even young people, also anyone out there, actually new opportunities, because we can also see through COVID, a lot of people have become unemployed, and interestingly, they have actually then gone on to start new businesses. So even in the place where I live here, we have several new places having that popped up during this time, because people feel like they want to own more of their own life and sort of stay in control. So that was so this theme was also something that really resonated with me, and it's also something that you can see with kids, for example, and the whole pandemic, and how you actually inform them about very basic levels of health and immunity and what it means, and sort of calm them down. Also, what is going out there, to also take away, anxiety from, I don't know, getting vaccinated or whatever, and see it more as an opportunity not to become sick, hopefully. And so, yeah.
Matthias, what was the most memorable part of today's recording for you?
I think what I liked a lot was that it was like evident that a lot of the topics we have been discussing in the preparations for this are really affecting people, are really affecting researchers, and there's a lot of different insights that I got from people and how they are mastering the pandemic from their end. So interestingly, people have been talking about other topics than expected, but still they resonated very well with the topic that we looked at. So again, to recap a little bit, so I'm always like bringing in a little bit the security aspect and these elements, of course. So I try to already contextualize it with that. We have been also talking about a lot or seeing a lot of different Web 2 aspects or results of Web 2 technologies, and we have been discussing a lot of like alternatives to all this kind of surveillance dystopia, but also different other parts that are partially tackled by blockchain technologies and decentralized systems, which are subsumed under the term Web3. We've been talking a lot about the future of research, because we have been also speaking with a lot of different researchers and people that work in research for a living, or that at least in research administration and so on. So that was super interesting and super relevant for me. Also to understand like how research is changing. And so what was interesting in this regard is to understand, and I like that you asked this question, Christian, about the biotech bubble, because I was reading this a lot in my preparations, and I was wondering, because there's often a lot of these developments are not seen natural, but they are also rather seen as bubbles. And then it's like a question, okay, is this just because it's successful, it's a bubble now instantly? So we have seen that, of course, also in blockchain, where this is often thematized. But I think what was evident now with the project we talked to and with the opportunities that have been presented, that this might not be only a bubble, but this might be a serious trend. And this is, of course, also, in my opinion, due to the fact that there's a lot of attention now on the healthcare sector and on the biotech sector. So I guess this is therefore relevant to understand also that the 2021 Horizon Europe program has a focus on that. It was also interesting to learn today. So we have been talking also a lot about resource scarcity in times of crisis, about supply chain shortage, talent shortage, and great resignation, and so on, all these terms. I think we haven't really spoken about the great resignation.
Maybe you have a time now, Matthias. Maybe you have a time now to talk about this topic with your friend Denis.
Yes, sure.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I was a bit late. Back-to-back meetings nowadays. I think.
Hello.
No problem.
So it's great to have you. You're our last guest for today, but nevertheless, I think like you're a very a good example and very interesting character. And I guess like not everyone knows you yet. So I would love to hear how your year was, but also to introduce a little bit the many things you started in your life and in your career. So I know you since quite some while. I think we met first in 1999 or something like that, or 2000. I remember meeting you at Ars Electronica back then. And so many things happened. So maybe not only in this past 20 years, but also in the past year for you. Maybe some people know you because you were very active in the field of Bitcoin, but maybe other people know you also because you are a very active open source advocate, also with Design.org. Maybe tell us your highlights, but also tell us a little bit about you and your activities.
Thanks, Matthias. Thanks for all the interest. Yeah, if we go back 20 years ago, I have to start really from the beginning. Well, we share quite some stories from Austria, where I think you come from also. So I ended up migrating when I was 23 or 24, very early, from south of Italy, then Tuscany, and then I migrated to Austria, where I lived for 4 years and worked at Ars Electronica, correct. It was a very interesting bunch of very brilliant people. I think at that time it was pretty much the equivalent of a small MIT in Europe, the Future Lab. And yeah, it was a bit smaller than it is now. It's the time in which I started seeing that technology can be used to make art, to make to address social issues, to make politics. What later becomes the technopolitics track in Vienna, can be used to make money. Later we saw very clearly. And I like to bring into the picture always the fact that open source, free and open source software can be a methodology of community development that leads to great success also in terms of business. And on the other side, it can grow a community beyond the very company, the very organization that maintains the software, of passionate people, of people that can be past or future co-workers, and of people that value the research and development that is done around the software. So this is about a methodology that I applied all my life for projects that span from the public and private sector. Now I work since 6 or more years. It's about 8, probably since 2012. So 9, oh my God, for the European Commission, for research and also like innovation actions. So with cities around Europe. And well, the first thing that I would like to say, besides you know, like advertising or shopping around the projects here and there, is that open source as a way of developing business, it works. And we knew it before Bitcoin came to life. And we see it now with the whole blockchain ecosystem, for instance, that a blockchain is not as such if it's not open source. I mean, it's obvious for us in the space. It's not that obvious for every new partner, industrial partner, and business venture that comes in. I would say don't fight it and look into the big opportunity that it holds. I'm not making it up. The milestone in the last 3 years, the Milestone acquisition of Red Hat by IBM for up to, I don't know how many $1 billion, I think 32. Yeah, and same amount. It's a milestone acquisition. It was an acquisition of a company based on free and open source software. So this is, we are not anymore playing as the kids in the game. I think those that will not realize it will play as a little bit like a passé old generation in the future game of what means also to make a venture and capital flourish. So yeah, the projects I've focused on in the last years are components, software components. So you know me since I worked also as an artist and with artists to do projections, video projections, channel synchronization and stuff like that. I moved back in 15 years ago. I moved in Amsterdam, where I live now, and I ended up working with people like Marina Abramovic or Erwin Olaf for their installation. It was very, very inspiring. But you know that the cultural sector doesn't pay really much. So I switched from DSP to crypto, and I work as an applied cryptographer now since more than 10 years. And well, one thing that struck me is how powerful is this whole environment and technology, and how hard is for new people to enter it. Even like the scripting languages like Solidity for Ethereum, which tried to democratize the access to this technology, is too hard for people. So in the past 5 or more years, I worked in the framework of a research project for the European Commission, which became a flagship project, Decode. I work on a virtual machine capable of crypto operations that can be programmed in human-like language. We called it Zen Room. You will find it on zenroom.org. And this is a component, it's not a product. So we help people build their own component in a way that involves non-programmers, people with domain knowledge about particular business logic, making them capable of programming the business logic in the code without being programmers. Because in the process of developing products, we realize a huge overhead is there in the communication between technicians and people that really know what the technicians should be doing. It's like there's a hell of a lot of communication. And if something goes wrong, then the product really is wrong and doesn't respond to what it was intended. So this is an interdisciplinarity exercise. People with domain knowledge, even if they are not technical, they are vital to the project. And we want to leverage their knowledge, and we want them to be able to interact in parallel with the programmers. It's a little bit like CSS, style sheets, became for the web. You know, a designer can work on a style sheet without interfering with the work of an HTML or PHP or Python or whatever programmer of the logics of the website. So we wanted to do this for crypto, and we realized it. And now we are applying it to a whole lot of projects and contexts. Decode was applied to 2 cities in Barcelona and Amsterdam, the cities of the future in Europe, in various pilots. And today we are working with 6 cities around Europe with the Reflow project, an even bigger project coordinated by the Copenhagen Business School, to realize what is popularly known as circular economies. So we're developing knowledge systems that can handle high complexity of logistics in a free and open source way, interfacing them with the main frameworks of European Commission software for smart cities. And we try to make sense of them with a vocabulary, ordering notions of, used textiles. Where should they go? We have a pilot about medical gowns being washed. We're talking about millions of them produced by hospitals, and where they go, what is their usage, what is their lifetime of components into industrial products. And we're trying to make sense of this complexity with a new approach, a resource event agent approach, which is a new generation for logistical software. So this is one of the fields in which we apply this crypto stuff to sign material passports, digital product passports, and sign digital twins, for instance, in a way that they can be also authenticated and we can trust this sort of information. And it's being quite on the spot. So you can bet we are very busy. As a foundation, we work for the European Commission, but now we are opening also a company, aptly named, you may know why, Fork Bomb Company. So you'll find it on forkbomb.eu. And we are forking a lot of efforts and products and components right now. So the last thing we did also was we're also active in the field of politics. So currently in Italy there is a platform that the Democratic Party, which is at the government, is using for involving activists and taking democratic decisions. The new secretary, Ricoletta, made it a big fuzz because it's their way to involve people. So it's on TV every time talking like, go there and put your stuff in there. Well, we are running that platform at Untitled. It's called Agora Democratica. And you can imagine it has been a huge challenge because running a service that is named on national TV prime time by politicians, it means like seeing those monitors going like whoop whoop whoop, like 10,000 taxes in 2 minutes, in 1 second, 2 seconds. It's like we have to hold quite some infrastructure. So we are learning around that, learning about availability and scaling. And it's this is just like this year it started, and it's been an engaging adventures. This we did also with the Decidim collective in Barcelona that started a world party that still rules some cities in Spain, applying this approach of participatory or direct democracy using digital tools. So there is a lot to do, Matthias. It's like very interesting. And as you hear, we are trying to stay away from the financial sector or the cybersecurity sector because that's very crowded, sometimes too boring, too much, too full of muscles. And we like to see how to apply new technologies to a social, innovative space day by day.
Very nice. Can you explain a little bit to the listeners also about time organization? Because I guess like it's maybe not so common to the listeners, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I don't know if it's like something you want to push at the moment, but I guess it's like relevant and therefore like people should.
Yeah, Dyn is more of a hacker community, I would say. I mean, it started from many of us used BBS back in the early 90s. The older members of our community are from ham radio amateurs. It existed as a community until 2005, purely amatorial, like you can call it like somewhere where people go after their work to talk to like-minded people if they have some question about how to do something, if they like to share some knowledge, if they like to know each other. All online, of course. We are completely natively digital, IRC-based internet relay chat way before Slack existed. So it's very natural for us to work remotely. And 2005 was the year that the Netherlands Media Art Institute I worked for at that time helped me to ground it as a new foundation in Amsterdam. And 2012 was the year in which we started working for projects that pay. So it always existed as a community. And now it exists as a valuable network of highly skilled people. Most people are in important positions also in companies, multinational corporations, the very people that run our search engines or social networks. And we stay in touch for friendship and the good vibes. And sometimes people like to leave their job and get involved into a new venture, and we have plenty of projects to get in. We are not so aggressive in attracting people into our projects, and we try to make it a very pleasant environment for people to hang around and talk about digital stuff, software, hardware. We have some restoration projects. So some members of our network are in charge of running 2 musea of ancient computers and archaeology in Italy. These are in Palazzola Crede, between Syracuse and Cosenza in Sicily, and one, Syracuse and Catania, and one is in Cosenza. And by the way, you can buy the calendar, which we do every year. There is a calendar of the musea. I like to share you so if you want to support them, it's a great way to buy the calendar of the museum. And members of the museum are running, for instance, the restoration of the Zuse, which is the most ancient computer in Europe. It's stored at the ZKM in Karlsruhe. And it's a valve-operated computer, was born in the late 20s and used in the 30s for agricultural planning in Germany. And the engineers that developed it are about to get over 90. So we have been running interviews, trying to collect documents, help to translate them from Germany to Italy, to experts, activated a network of experts involving people, passionate people from Poland, all over Germany and Italy, and we are running this restoration project since 3 years. So you can imagine like how involving is such an activity, even like for a programmer coming from any background. When you start seeing these things, like that's how let's say, we are heartbreakers for the nerds. And sometimes I describe Dynorg as the revenge of the nerds digital chapter.
It sounds so fantastic, because I think like you're also describing so many different projects. But has there been some highlights for you in the past year that you wanna highlight, something super exciting or something that is driving you towards the next year, towards 2022, that you're super excited for?
Yeah. Yeah, here is the link of the calendar. I sent you a direct message, but I can send to hosts and panelists. Let's see. I think this is a calendar that every nerd wants to have in the lab. It has photos of ancient computers, so it's real porn for us. And yeah, it's. I think for the next year, I mean, we had two big news. One of them is that, and this is very recent. One of them is that, so Europe has the EPSI initiative for blockchain services, and it has been started as an initiative to serve 24 member states so far adhering in notarization activities digitally using a blockchain. And they did a pre-commercial procurement. So this is not like a simple procurement. It's like a 3-year process procurement in which companies are selected to run such a vital and important infrastructure with, you can imagine how much liabilities clauses are attached. And we form a consortium together with Dynorg as a coordinator and Riddle & Code as a company from Vienna that you know well, Thomas Furstener, a technologist that I have very old in very high esteem and knows our work, and Infocert, a company in Italy that has full ADAS competency on the crypto validation that Europe requires for identity and authorizations. We formed this consortium, we raced for the pre-commercial procurement, and we won the first phase. And 2 days ago, they told us we won the second phase. So now we are in the small 4.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow.
Yeah, it is a big deal. And it's not only about money and responsibility and growth for all of us, but it's really like the dream that an European-made blockchain, fully European-made technology can run on the infrastructure. And it's completely open source. It's open to a global community worldwide to be forked, to be used, reused, and adapted. We're using BigchainDB at the core of the infrastructure, which is technology has been used around, and we want to merge it with Zen Room. We want a blockchain that is programmed in human-like language. So for non-techies, we are techies against technocracy. It's like, so that's my activist stance here, besides Revenge of the Nerd. And yeah, that is one big news. The second big news, which we got today, because today was signed the contract with the Forderung Bank in Hamburg, is that we are going to work with Fab City Hamburg in Germany for leveraging their logistical system of tracking materials all across Fab cities in Hamburg, which is a city that hosts an incredibly dynamic scenario for Fab cities, Fab labs, fabrication labs, grassroots open source stuff that is starting to produce designed objects and design objects. And we want to create a circular and virtual and virtuous economy that can actually leverage the designers that are doing these things locally and selling them also on big platforms all across Germany and Europe. And to do that, we need to trace the forks of designs. Like you design a chair based on the 3D design of someone else, and you want to fork how this design has been reused. And we want to split the wealth all across the designers involved. So to create a really open playing field for the sort of community that is behind the Fab Labs. It may sound utopian, but it's very concrete, and there is already a publication describing this in German. I will post it on the chat here. And yeah, we have started already the work. Actually, we are so excited that besides the formalities, we started to work on this in August already last year, this ending year, and we are getting out with a couple of new free software products that we are announcing next year, and you'll see.
This is so fantastic, Dennis. Unfortunately, we are at the end of the show, so my co-hosts are already pressing me to actually wrap up. So I guess
that was enough, I guess, to take for the audience.
Really fantastic news. I have to still a little bit process it, but also I think you're a perfect last guest for this, because there have been some great announcements also that are for sure something that people will see in the following years also, so that they are super relevant, I guess. So very interesting end of the year info here. We had a very, very long day where we have been speaking with different researchers, different people of all sorts of places, and mostly researchers actually, but people, I guess, that are all very positive towards the future. So we have been speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs, with different people from different backgrounds. This was really an exciting, but also very long and marathon-like event for me. Christian, thank you so much for hosting us and for having us here. Astrid, thanks also for hosting this. Do you have some final words, Christian and Astrid, that you want to say?
Thank you very much, Matthias and Astrid, for being part of this recording marathon. It was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to our next year in review in 2022.
Thanks a lot for having us, Christian. It was really a great pleasure. We made it up to 8 hours now. So it was quite a marathon, as Matthias described, but really exciting guests. And also, also last but not least, guests, was really exciting to hear, what's happening on that front. So thanks very much, everyone.
Astrid, Matthias, I wish you both, your teams and your families, a very happy and Merry Christmas and a great start into 2022 and huge successes in the future.
Likewise, Christian. I hope also that, that the podcast continues to develop well and as you expected. So thanks again and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our listeners here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, and all the best wishes to you as well. I guess we have wished Merry Christmas a lot today. Yeah. It's not so common for me because I'm usually not celebrating that so much, but it's I'm feeling very festive. So thanks again, Christian and Astrid.
Have a great weekend, you too, and we see each other soon. Bye-bye.
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 Thanks for listening. Please share the podcast and make sure you've subscribed. Have a great day.